Everybody, I want to do a video on how to correct uh, bad habits or less than optimal movement patterns for really advanced athletes. So Jody is going to be the person I'm going to use to show this because, well, and she's really fucking strong. She doesn't have that many less than optimal um, uh, parts of her movement. There's just some very, very small things. One in particular is her right heel seems to come up in pressure and favor the inside of the foot. This uh, shows up in pretty much every single lift that she does, especially things like clean and press, push press, squatting, anything where the knees and hips are having to lower and then come back up is where it's very evident um, that the heel comes up. And she's been struggling with fixing this because, in my opinion, it's because she's been being talked at by previous coaches and mentors saying, hey, change this, change this, change this, like a direct, hey, stop, you know, instead of addressing the heel, it's addressing the entirety of the movement. So, for example, rather than putting exercises and movements in the program to reinforce this heel down here, she might be getting cues of saying like, hey, square your hips up, or, you know, stop jumping under the bell, or something later on in the lift that is not addressing the center, the start of why the movement is happening that way. You have to begin at the starting point, especially with really advanced athletes, because here's what's happening. She knows how to make the correction, but she can't because her habits are literally as strong as she is. That is the point of having a fucking habit and being strong. She has reinforced everything to be literally as strong as she is, so her habits are as strong as she is. That is going to take some time to break down, and oftentimes, especially when you're handling some really heavy weights, you can't make corrections under load. That barrier tops out at about 65 to 70% of your max of where you can actually make corrections under load. So if you're trying to prep an advanced athlete under a heavy lift and you have to make corrections, you might as well not even talk at them. You got to program something to correct that. So I'm going to go through and talk about and show just a few videos on how that's progressed from now to then. So first thing I want you to notice is this foot right here. It's hard to see from this angle, but if you look at the ankle, the shin, and the knee, you can kind of see it come forward each time in the dip. That automatically knows that the outside of the heel over here is coming up. So, rather than saying, hey, Jody, go fix this, Jody, go fix that, say, hey, Jody, let's think about something. What is, what's going to cause that, heel to go down? Well, we have 3 points to press through on the feet, the two toes and the back heel. So, right here, these 2 points, right? This is the foot. If this isn't staying down, well, look what happened here. It looks like that could be pressed down more, that could be pressed down more evenly, right? So the cue I gave her actually is think about pressing your middle 3 toes into the ground. Because if you press your middle 3 toes into the ground, almost in that sort of direction, it's going to cause the heel to plant down as well. So that was the cue I gave her. And I said, just think about that. And I intentionally did it after, let's see here. I did it after one of these earlier sets when we first started working together. I think it was here. No, probably around here. You can see actually both heels do it. This one is a little bit more prominent, it looks like. But you can see how there's tension, 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 and then there's just a little bit of loose spot where she dives forward just a tad and then comes back up. That's what we want to fix, that's what we want to address, and that's what's reflecting in every single other lift that she does. So, after this session, after it was fully completed and we were at home, I said, Jody, think about pushing your 3 toes into the ground. That's all I said. And then I also programmed her on our split squats. We always have, for our warm-ups, we always have variations or exercises that are isolated portions of each section of the stack, right? So we're isolating the foot, the ankle, the knee, then we're isolating the foot, ankle, knee, and how they're working together. Then we're adding the hip in the mix, and so on up the chain. So one of the first things we do for every workout is split squats, elevated split squats, because it's pretty fucking rare that you're not going to use your quad and your hip and your knee and your foot together. So that's one of those exercises where all 3 components of the lower body are forced to work together in unison, and that's where we start to make corrections. So I said, let's reinforce and load the area that you're weak on. So we took a floss band and we put it under the part of the heel that continues to come up in each lift. And we perform our split squats while forcing her to hold that down. These are acting as more of neurological cues that you don't even have to speak about. You just have the athlete do them and they will correct themselves without realizing it. The more minimum amount of information exchange that you can have with the athlete, the better, especially at the more advanced level, because they are thinking about a lot of things, and the last thing they need to think about is making a change, okay? So let's look how this has progressed a little bit. Just those 2 things. So one, just a little seed, which isn't a full answer. It makes her think about all of her lifts. It makes her conscious of what's going on in all of her lifts across all of her training and outside of the gym when she's walking around. She knows the heel comes up. She knows that her toes have to be the ones to correct that. That's it. So it gives her something to think about, and then we give her the reinforcing exercises. That's it. Those are the only 2 things that we talked about. Now you can see it happening a little bit still, but I think this is about the first week we really started to nail it in. Now what I want you to notice is the slowness of the bar when it hits the peak point of the knee caving, right? So actually let me back that up. Watch. So it slows a little bit at the point where she corrects her feet, okay? Now, let's watch how fast it goes when her feet are already corrected. This is going to be the middle ground. So you can still see a little bit of movement, but it's getting a ton better. And you can also see how that changes the knees, the hips, the rack position, and ultimately the actual movement of the bar from making these changes. Now let's see. This is the most recent week. Much better. Almost no break there. There's still a little bit, but we can see how much that's minimized. I'm looking at the straight line from the ankle up to the knee, up to the hip, the entire movement. We can see how that's minimized from back here. You could see how much, you could almost literally see the whole fucking ankle fall to the inside of the foot. So, All that being said, that is how you properly make a change in an advanced athlete. You definitely don't walk across the gym and start talking at them and offering them advice, especially when you are not nearly as good at what it is they are doing as they are. That is really fucking cringy, and it should probably stop. So, that's the first part on this little correctional video. If you're a coach, always start with the feet. Everything about how the athlete moves, I mean, we're talking about force production. Well, how do you produce force? Where does it come from and where does it go to? Well, it can only happen so many ways. You got your feet and you got the ground. So it's going downward through your feet into the ground. That's why movement optimization and form corrections always start from the feet. It's very basic. Quit looking at how the lift looks and look at how the feet look across all lifts, and then find the patterns and then make the corrections. Don't open your mouth first. That's it. Thanks for watching.